Well, grace and peace, family. We pray that you all are having an incredible day. We are here today again with one of God's greatest. I'm going to read his bio here shortly. But I want to say to all of you on LinkedIn, to all of our family that's on YouTube, and our family that's on Facebook. We are on all of those platforms. As you are coming in, we want you to do us a favor and share the video because we're about to have a conversation with politics or about politics with Dr. Fisher. And so we want you to come in and share the video. Listen, for those of you who are authors, you are pastors, you are business owners, any level of entrepreneurship that you function in, we want you to go to blackwomenempowereddirectory.com. It's right there under my name. If you go there, you can become a part of a network that our founder and our CEO, Dr. Jacqueline King, who is our visionary, she had an idea to bring African American entrepreneurs together to create a network so that you all could expand your businesses to whatever degree that is. Um, if you're a playwright, I just give you, if you are a grant writer, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have people from all walks of life who are African Americans who are doing incredible things all over this world, who are a part of the BWE directory. And so, again, you can go there, you can sign up for a small fee, but you want to get on there now. It's growing rapidly. And I think that it would do you good to be able to network with people of like minds. And the people are literally getting business from the directory. So listen, again, do me a favor and share the video. Let's get us some viewers in. I'm going to read Dr. Fisher's brief bio, and then we're going to get into the conversation. Reverend Earl J. Fisher, PhD, holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science from Lemoyne On College, a Master of Divinity degree from Memphis Theological Seminary, and a PhD in Communication from the University of Memphis. Pastor Earl is the senior pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Memphis, Tennessee, known as the Blackest Church in Memphis and Shelby County. If you don't say that, it's not official. You gotta say that. If
That's
you don't say that, it's not official. But also, he is the founder of Up the Vote 901, a nonpartisan voter empowerment initiative committed to producing political power and increasing voter turnout in Memphis and Shelby County. Dr. Fisher is married to Denise Lloyd Fisher. They have one son, Jalen Fisher, and one granddaughter, Carter Ann Lil Mama Fisher. Um, Dr. Fisher, you can also introduce your book to our audience. Let them know what book you author.
sure. Uh, the reintroduction of the Black Messiah, Albert Clegg Jr. and the Black Prophetic Tradition. It's on Lexington Books. That's the publisher. You can find it on Amazon. You can reach out to me directly. And while I got the floor, thank you, Bishop Whitaker, for allowing me to return back to this powerful platform. Salute to Dr. Jackie King, all the work of Black women empowered, Black men empowered, especially in this very critical and crucial moment with so much going on. And thanks to all of those who participated in one form or another in our previous conversation, for all of the
Mhm.
feedback, for all of the engagement, for all of the likes and the shares and the comments, and for all of those who are tuned in now, man. Thanks for having me back. Looking forward to continuing our conversation.
Absolutely. As I tell people, in my thought, you are the foremost uh, of understanding the political climate, and even understanding it from a theological standpoint. And we'll talk about some of that tonight. But for me, you are in the lane of the greatest. and we are honored to have you on here. So, of course, we are here. We are right smack dab at the end of the DNC tonight. Kamala Harris is going to officially accept the nomination from the Democratic Party, and so we haven't seen this kind of excitement or an enthusiasm surrounding a campaign literally since Barack Obama, right? I don't think we've seen anything as exciting. What do you believe right now that what do you believe people are gravitating to? What are they coming to? Why is this there's such an excitement about what Kamala Harris is doing right now?
Well, I'm not sure I can capture the totality of all of the elements that are at work
Mhm.
that has added to this populism, this fervor, this fire, this excitement, this energy. And
Mm.
according to like one of the themes that the Democratic Party is trying to use, this joy, right? Um,
Yeah,
and I'm not so sure that so I want to try to be reasonably objective.
sure.
Um, for people who are on the left, for people who consider themselves liberal or
Hmm.
progressive, I think that's true that we hadn't seen something like this since 2008, Obama's first term. But I
Sure.
think it is comparative in some ways, even in its irony, to what people on the right and the conservatives experienced with Trump in
Sure.
2016. You know, there
Sure.
was a
Sure. Absolutely.
wave of so there was a wave of populism, and some might say it was similar to that with Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders ultimately didn't end up with the
Nominate.
Democratic nomination. But
Sure.
there's definitely been some energy, and I think some of it is the warm handoff from President Biden,
Okay.
and some of it is like a end around or maybe even a misdirection in the Democratic Party because there was a sense that
Hmm.
Trump's reelection was inevitable after the first debate with him and President Biden. And
Absolutely.
so there was so much like slander, you know, whether you say it was valid or not, there was definitely a lot of hyper criticism and sensitivity around every move
Hmm.
that he was making, President Biden was making. And it looked like, you know, the ship had sailed. And I think even the Trump campaign and a lot of them just felt like the handwriting was on the wall.
Sure.
So when, you know, Biden in this last act of campaign heroism says, okay, I'll step back and, you know, it ain't
Hmm.
gonna be no speculation about who can or should be. I'm stamping Kamala Harris
Come
as
on.
the one. Then I think, you know, some of that is unprecedented. Like we hadn't seen that in politics. Um,
Never.
you you could try to compare it to 68 when, you know, JFK is assassinated though. And then
Yeah,
you
that's completely different.
LBJ, right? And even when LBJ steps down, there's this leadership vacuum that many would argue gives rise to, I can't remember right now if it's the Nixon campaign or, yeah, I think it's the Nixon campaign. So Nixon kind of wins on the heels of that
Sure.
1968 thing. So I'm not sure what all has gone into it, but some of it is she's just a bad, brilliant, bold
Come
sister
on, man. She just
that,
bad. I don't know what
yeah,
everybody, if people are not really acknowledging that, but she just a bad girl.
yeah,
You
right.
know.
Like, yeah. So I do think some of that, some of the excitement and all of that is just rooted
Mhm.
in her pedigree. Like
Okay.
she ain't no slouch. Now,
Absolutely.
and I think we talked about this last time. You know, when black folks end up in spaces and positions like that, you don't no black person with Trump's political resume
Hmm.
could ascend to the presidency like Trump did in 2016. It's just not gonna happen.
It's
So,
not possible.
so when black folks get to that position, you know it's because they jumped through multiple hoops politically,
Absolutely.
professionally, and probably navigated through some shark infested waters personally. And I think that's the case with her. I think the warm handoff helped. I think some of the
Mhm.
anti-Trump sentiment, because people were like anybody but Trump. It was people saying, and I was one of them. Like I was gonna vote for Biden if Jesse Jackson once said he would take Franklin Delano Roosevelt in a wheelchair over
Come
Ronald
on,
Reagan on a high horse.
come on here.
And so I was like, man, I don't. If Biden's name is on the ballot, I'm going with
Yes,
Biden because
absolutely.
anybody but Trump. And I think some of that anti-Trump sentiment was enhanced, and I mean enhanced, not just increased, because at some point
Sure,
you want to be able to root for somebody and not just root against somebody. And a whole lot of people
absolutely.
who felt like you couldn't root for Biden, but I'm a root against Trump, have now said, y'all gave me somebody to root for. I
To
think it's a
actually
lot
vote
of
for, absolutely.
yeah. So I think that's a lot of it. And some of the other elements and developments in the political landscape are part of it. But I think those are the major thrusts right there.
Let's, and we'll get to some other questions, but I just have these precursors that I want to address because we're right at the end of the DNC. The just the other night, I mean, last night we had, I think, the Clintons
Yep.
spoke, and then the night prior to that, the Obamas spoke. How important do you think it was for those well known and beloved political figures to come before the DNC and to give such dynamic words and speeches towards her campaign? How important do you think that was for just the whole culture and climate of what it is that we're trying to do?
So I won't say what it is we're trying to do because I'm not sure who the we is yet. We could talk about that going forward. I will
Okay.
say I do, I do think some of it is just pomp and circumstance, right? It's
Okay.
just what you have to do to show a sign of solidarity and party unity, right?
Sure.
Whether it's authentic or not, because there's a lot of reports, speculation,
I heard some of that.
innuendo
Yeah.
that the Obamas, who kind of were late in their endorsement of
They were
uh,
very late, sir.
Vice President Harris and Nancy Pelosi, they were
Uh-huh.
kind of, the Clintons were kind of like, this is not, according to many reports, necessarily what they had envisioned if Biden was going to step down. But they did respond, I think, righteously and reasonably to the fervor that we were just discussing.
Mhm.
And they fell in line. And now they are making the public presentation. And I think that's as it should be. Here's the other thing, though. At the end of the day, you
Uh-huh.
cannot underestimate and you have to appreciate the effectiveness of the
Mhm.
Clintons and the Obamas in making their argument for who people who are identifying as progressive or liberal should support. And
Absolutely.
look, the man, Michelle Obama's remarks were,
Listen, she was off the charts, man. She was
bruh,
off the charts. I personally thought that Obama should have opened up for her and then allow. That was just my person. After I watched it, and I watched it several times
yeah,
over again, and I said, yeah, she could have closed that out.
yeah,
You know, I mean, she's beloved in this country anyway by blacks and whites just
true,
because of her character and how she stood as the first lady of this country.
yeah,
So everybody loves her. She was just a class act, and so
indeed,
when she spoke, it was so powerful. But here's something that I want to ask you. Um, so Robert Kennedy is pulling out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And he is officially, who is typically, he was a Democrat, but then he went independent, or whatever. But now he's endorsing Trump. Do you believe that him pulling out and endorsing Trump would have any major effect on the voting of the people?
No, I don't think it's ultimately going to impact the outcome, especially the way it seems to be shaping up.
Okay,
Now, I'm not shocked that as he is pulling out, he is throwing his endorsement behind the more conservative,
sure.
the whiter, and in a lot of ways, the more ridiculous candidate between the two. You know,
You
I,
said
I,
it
I think
twice.
Oprah said it well. Like you got a choice between common sense and
Sure.
nonsense, right?
It's simply put,
Right.
absolutely.
And so if you think about some of the comments that RFK has made, that has embarrassed his family by their own admission, um,
Mhm.
I think he is much more in alignment with what you see coming out of the Republican Party and Trump's campaign in particular. I don't think
Okay.
he had. I think part of the reason he is bowing out is because he sees he doesn't have the kind of support that he would
Right.
want, and so I don't see how, I don't see him pulling out, throwing his support behind Trump, somehow giving Trump some groundswell of people who were either
Okay.
undecided or people who were more committed to the Democratic Party. But now, since RFK is moving over, now I just don't see that happening. I've heard a lot of commentators say something to that effect too. Like, I just don't think it's gonna make that much of a
You
difference.
don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference? So on the flip side, the beloved in our community, West, brother West, has officially been able to now be on the ballot. Do you and what's the other guy's name? Is it Tim? Tim, is he on the ballot as well?
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. Matter of fact, I didn't even know that it was official that Dr. West has made the ballot. I know
yeah,
he was
it's official.
trying to sneak in on Michigan's ballot. You know, I,
It,
I think we said this last time we chatted, and again,
mhm.
I hosted Dr. West at Abyssinian last year. As he was first starting to make his rounds and
Uh-huh.
announce his candidacy. So, of course, at the time, President Biden was still recognized as the candidate.
Sure.
And I said this to my dear brother, my fraternity brother, my brother in the
I
academy,
was
my
just
brother.
gonna say that's your frat.
What I'm saying? I got nothing but love for him, but I am still disappointed by his inability, as I see it, to
Sure.
assess what's best for the black people who I know he loved in this particular moment. So there's no chance he's going to win.
No
There's no
chance.
chance he's going to win.
We know
Um,
that.
there, there is a chance that he might impact the vote in Michigan. I don't see him necessarily impacting the
Okay.
vote in any other state. But of course, Michigan has been deemed such a battleground state and so crucial. And in 2020, I think Biden won Michigan by less than like 12,000 votes or something like that, or 20,000 votes. And
Yeah.
so, knowing that there's still a lot of tension around the Palestinian and Israel conflict that's happening,
Yes.
and there's
Yes.
a lot of disdain for the way that the Democratic Party has not stepped up and supported Palestine.
Palestine. Right.
It's quite possible with that large Arab population in my home state of Michigan, it might have some impact. It remains to see how much. It remains to be seen how much. But again, I want to affirm and appreciate Dr. West's prophetic perspective. I just don't
Hmm.
see how he justifies staying in this race at this particular point, knowing the impact it could have. But it remains to
Right.
be seen.
I think the general consensus is that a lot of people are disappointed that he's still pursuing, knowing that he doesn't have a chance to win, but the possibility of uh, derailing some voters is definitely a high probability because he's just beloved, right? Who doesn't love Dr. West? You know what I mean? And so that was just kind of interesting to me. Um, but let's move on. So my and we that was just kind of openers. What do you or how would you define the key differences between the Trump campaign and Kamala's campaign?
I mean, I think there's a lot. Now, I will confess my grievance that this
Okay.
first primary distinction should not be as impactful as it is in this political climate, and that is their personalities, right?
Okay.
Like these are two,
Okay.
I wish we were past like this personality driven thing and how much you personally like somebody, or how likable they are, or how
Sure.
jovial they
Sure.
are, right? But at the end of the day, because too many of us put feelings over facts, It's
Mm-hmm.
important how someone makes us feel. And I think the average person in the country sees these two people as people who have two distinct and different personalities. One is very negative, vindictive, cutthroat, insensitive, arrogant, you
Very
know,
arrogant.
and then the other one is a lot more loving, nurturing, open-minded. This
Sure.
doesn't mean that either of them are perfect, and I want us again to be a little bit more nuanced with our energy and how we engage in this stuff. But one
Absolutely.
is definitely grounded in a fear-based campaign, and the other is grounded in a lot more in a much more hopeful and visionary campaign. One is
Mm-hmm.
trying to take us. I mean, this is their talk, right? They are
Absolutely.
saying, make America great again, or make it like it was. And then another is saying, no, let's try to build upon what has been, the best and the brightest of what has been, and let's make things better moving into the future. So, I see primarily
Mm-hmm.
the biggest impact being in their different personalities. And you can see their personality embedded in their particular campaigns. But then there's some policy stuff, right? Like policy stuff. They are in complete opposition on a lot of stuff.
Complete
From
polar opposites. Yeah.
yeah, from one believes that the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice are valuable entities, especially insofar as holding powerful institutions and organizations accountable, like police departments. So if you
Absolutely.
look at the way Kamala Harris has presented herself, if you look at the policies that she supported, if you look at her vote insofar as the tie-breaking vote in the Senate now as vice president,
Mm-hmm.
the way she maneuvered as the senator out of California,
Uh-huh.
look at her stance on criminal justice reform, and then
Mm-hmm.
look at former President Trump's. They are polar opposite. You
Polar
know,
opposites.
Trump has said he wants to give full immunity to police officers. Now, here's the sad thing. No one can really discuss Trump's policy platform with any particularity because he doesn't really run on policy.
No.
And
No, he
so,
doesn't.
you get these blanket statements. No media person that I've seen has been able to hold his feet to the fire about some of his policy claims. I'm a communication scholar. Y'all know I study rhetoric and language and
Right.
political and theological and religious speech. So I can tell you right now, he engages in the politics of hyperbole, which is to say he exaggerates everything. It's the greatest it's ever been. It's going to be the best it's ever going to be. And when you start to nail out how, he cannot tell you.
He cannot tell you how.
Right?
What do you think
And
about the statement that he made? Let me interject this right quick. When he said to voters that if you vote this time, you won't have to vote again.
right. So I think most reasonable commentators have assessed that that's a reference to a notion embedded within Project 2025
Absolutely.
that if they get in power, they will manufacture an infrastructure that would ensure there would be no more free and fair elections, and they will rig the system. It's ironic, right? Because he also engages in the politics of projection. So everything he
Okay.
blames other people for is generally the things he wants to do
He's
himself.
trying to do.
Yeah, right. So if he start talking about they gonna rig the election, it's because he wants the election
He
to be
wants
rigged.
to rig it.
And so if he starts talking about stealing that, so he is doing that, and it is clear that that is his posture, even if we can't nail him down on policy. So that's what he said.
Okay.
But who is his counterpart? Who is Vice President Harris in terms of policy? Where does she stand on voting rights? Where does he stand? Where
Right.
does she stand on climate change? Where does he stand? We know that these are polar opposites. But the most beautiful thing about their distinction is how they have obtained and how they have exuded or disseminated their political power.
Right.
One uses power from a very self-centered standpoint, and the other uses power from a much more communal and democratic standpoint. Here's one of the brilliant lines from former President Clinton in his remarks. He says people always assess how many times Trump's lies. Don't count the lies, count the eyes.
Mm.
Count the number of times he references himself. And you can see, man, the narcissism. These are things that his niece has said in public, right? These are things he has family members who have said, former
Yeah,
associates, close compadres, people who have been
absolutely.
up close and personal with him for a long time, which is amazing because it points out, and I know we'll probably get into some of this, the hypocrisy
Sure.
associated with people on the right who used to try to hold morality and ethics as their
Come on.
standard. These are the
That,
people who wanted to impeach and get rid of Bill Clinton for inappropriate sexual behavior. But
come
now
on.
y'all are standing 10 toes down behind somebody who is undoubtedly a sexual assaulter.
Of
Y'all
the
claim
president.
to be the people who care all about law and order, but this is the guy who is telling you, as a convicted felon, that he is going to use his power to get people who killed police officers in January 6th acquitted and released from imprisonment. So,
That's
you
right.
know, it's not hard for people who want to be reasonably objective to see the
Hmm.
distinction between them, those two people, in terms of personality, policy, and power.
So this is a perfect segue into this piece here, because I think a lot of problems that we're having is that a lot of people believe that what Trump stands for is more Christian based, because you talked about morals and things of that nature, as
Yeah,
opposed to what Kamala stands for. And so I want you to break down the difference in what white nationalists
yeah,
believe as opposed to what the Christian foundation is, so that people can understand that, he's not a Christian. This is not Christian based. This is not, you understand what I'm saying? And because
yeah,
a lot of church folk
yeah,
are saying, hey, but they are supporting this and they are supporting that. And one thing that you said in our last conversation was, well, you're not going to get everything you want,
right,
right? You're going to
right,
have to choose what you're willing to compromise and what you're not willing to compromise.
yeah.
So kind of break that down for us, so that we can understand, so the people can understand the difference.
Yeah, so this particular point that I think you're pressing, Bishop, is not so much about the notion of compromise. This is about
Okay.
consciousness. This is about character, and this is about substance and essence. So if the
Okay.
substance and essence of the Christian faith are, according to Jesus, two things:
Come
love
on.
God and love your neighbor, you would have to explain to me how Trump embodies either of those. Don't nobody
Either.
really see him as no overly spiritual guy. He would say he's not. And
He
if you talk
said 2 Corinthians.
I was
Okay.
just about, I was just about to say, look, I got a niece, Kalia Lloyd. We call her KK. She can tell you the books of the Bible, and she
Right.
ain't saying 2 Corinthians,
Two
okay?
Corinthians.
And she 8 years old. So here's the I guess like the linchpin. I
Hmm.
wish I wish I could find a better metaphor right now, but the linchpin of it all is this. And everybody who is interested in diving more deeply into this, I
Okay.
tagged one of my mentors, elder statesman and brother, a premier Bible scholar, Dr. Aubrey Hendricks. His
Okay.
recent
I see that there.
his last book is Christians Against Christianity, and he's talking about
Mm.
how right-wing evangelicals have taken over and also misrepresented and bastardized the Christian faith.
Okay.
So let's go back to this point I was making about the differences between Vice President Harris and former President Trump as it
Okay.
relates to power, right? So
Hmm.
in Christianity, power is supposed to be utilized to empower the least of these, the least, the last, the left out, right? The widows, the orphans.
Sure.
Jesus says, as you have done for the least of these, that's what
You
you
done
have done.
also unto me. Right.
So if you look at how former President Trump has leveraged his power, even prior to office, one of the things I say about power is you can tell what people will do with power by what they do to get it. And I don't think nobody's gonna say Trump has
I need
been
you.
the
Oh,
most.
oh, oh, hold on. I need you to rewind. I got it. You got to rewind that, and you got to say that again for the people.
You can tell what people will do with power by what they do to get power.
Jesus.
And if you do unethical, immoral things to get it, clearly when you got it, you're going to use it in immoral and unethical ways. I'll be honest with you, Bishop, no one is really trying to make the argument that Trump is a diehard Christian or
Right.
a model of Christianity. Here's what's revealing about white Christian nationalism. It is
Okay.
not necessarily Christian. It is
Uh,
definitely white, and they want a white nation, and they're willing to use Christianity to get it.
that's the bottom line.
Right? So Christianity for them is not at the forefront of how they see themselves. Christianity is simply a tool that they use to get national power, and they lay nationalism and Christianity at the foot of their
Mhm.
whiteness. They worship at the altar of their whiteness.
Mm.
And so it's too
Talk, sir.
many black Christians that don't have a black consciousness. So you too worship at the altar of whiteness, and you
Oh,
endorse.
whoa, hold on, hold on. This, I mean, listen. I need you to rewind that last piece and say it again for
It's
the
too many.
people.
It's too many black Christians who
Uh
don't
huh.
have a black consciousness, and so you worship at the altar of whiteness. You
Good
endorse,
God.
you affirm, you support everything white Christian nationalists tell you, because you are so enthralled by the whiteness and aspire to the whiteness that you are afraid to even interrogate the essence of your blackness. This is Tim Scott. Tim Scott
I,
Price. This is Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. This
who's
is Ben
always
Carson.
been like that. He's never been on our side.
Yeah, right. And so they see this facade of Christianity cloaked in whiteness, where they can't even admit and acknowledge Jesus was black, or they would say something like, it don't make a difference. And then if you ask them, well, if it don't make a difference, why did they change the essence of his pigmentation? They can't
If it
answer.
don't matter. If it don't matter, if it
Yeah,
doesn't matter, then let's leave it authentically what it is.
yeah. And then let's assess if Jesus's experience as a black man, a person of color, a person of Hebrew descent, a person who grows up close enough
You
to
taking
Egypt
me
to
to
walk to
church,
get
man, but
there.
go ahead.
Yeah, look, he grew up close enough to Egypt to walk to get there. Okay,
Yeah.
that's where he goes to hide when there's public policy that is targeting people like him. And if he is some blonde hair, blue eyed baby, how you gonna hide a blonde hair, blue eyed baby in Egypt,
In
in
Egypt,
Africa,
sir.
right? And if this is Jesus's experience, how does that color or impact Jesus's consciousness? And how does he live that out? And if none of that matters, then why change it? So
Woo!
clearly it matters. And I'm saying it's sad because there's too many black Christians who won't reckon with this. And I'm saying it allows them to be more easily exploited and manipulated in crucial moments like this, because you think you're doing God a favor by supporting a person who is not nearly in alignment with the scriptures or the ethics that have been espoused through denominations or communities that say we love God and neighbor, or at least going to try to do it. And now you are advancing the cause of white Christian nationalism, which is so closely aligned with white supremacy, you can't tell them apart.
Good God Almighty. I mean, I can't tell you just on my social media alone how many pastors have just came out to share posts bashing. I think it's so ignorant. Personally, I think that it's ignorant. It's unnecessary,
Yeah.
and it's not doing the job that needs to happen at this particular time. They're coming against it, and so when I see them, and I try not to respond. I try not to say anything, because people take this stuff so serious, and but they don't understand the the ignorance of what they're doing.
So
Um,
I posted something a couple weeks ago, and I said too many of us are willing to plant a flag in our own ignorance because we want to be right so badly that we're acting and thinking wrongly.
just I mean, and kind of wallowing in our ignorance. The old saying, ignorance is bliss, but it's not, right?
No,
It's not. Ignorance, at this particular time, if we don't handle right, if we're not informed, ignorance will put us back 40 years, right?
yeah,
If 50 years, you know what I mean? 60 years. If we don't handle this properly, then ignorance will definitely be a problem for us, or create a problem for us.
yeah. I mean, in a sense, it kind of has, but it's not completely black folks' fault because we've been put in a position where so many
Right.
people feel like it is beneficial to
Okay.
assimilate and ascribe to those kind of ideologies. So it enhances the likelihood of us thinking these things are endorsed by the divine. Now, I'm
Okay.
willing, see, here's the difference now. I'm willing to have these open and honest conversations with anybody who wants to have them. And if I am misstating the facts, if you think I am misrepresenting the faith, let's have that conversation because I didn't just
Right.
pop up one day and start thinking this way or acting this way or talking this way. Like this has come.
Sir, you are the most consistent that I know. Okay. You are consistent with your beliefs. You are consistent with your convictions, and you are consistent. Your actions follow all of that.
Yes,
So
look,
absolutely.
I appreciate that affirmation, but part of the point I'm trying to make right now, Bishop, is, and I didn't always think this way. I have been
Oh wow.
operating, I have been operating from this platform for quite some time. Yes, right. But
Okay.
none of us fall out of the sky as some black theological liberationist and revolutionary, right? Like you got to be
Sure.
introduced to this stuff. And what I'm
Sure.
saying is, I am honest enough to admit when I am wrong. So if somebody can prove what I not, it hadn't happened in quite some time, okay, or at least
I got you.
the essence of the arguments I'm making, nobody really disputes this stuff, right? So it's
Right.
clear, and I'm asking black folks now. I'm asking black faith folks why we would not be more committed to interrogating these ideas and these philosophies because they impact our political practice. And to your point right now, Bishop, it might mess up where we believe the people of God are called and destined to be
Sir.
over the next 10 to 15 and 20 years. And if it is that much at stake, why wouldn't we interrogate it?
Why wouldn't we? Right? Why wouldn't we? And I said this to someone on yesterday, that right now I think the most ignorant people on the planet are uninformed black people, or unwilling to learn black folk and Trump supporters. I think those are, they are a detriment at this particular time for progress, right? And so it's just it's disheartening to see, and it's disappointing to actually have to deal with it. But we gonna keep moving though. We gonna keep, you was finna make a point.
No, I mean, you saying that, and I know it is true to an extent. I'm not sure exactly to what extent. And part of what I think baffles me, frustrates me, and gives me pause and a level of despair is that I know that they are being indoctrinated to maneuver
Okay.
that way.
Okay.
And so I would be cautious. Like there are certain people that you just know don't have your best interest at heart.
Right.
And what do you do when you find yourself articulating the exact same points that these people are articulating? And there's a history. Look, up to vote 901, we hosted a Let's Talk Politics session a couple weeks
Okay.
ago, and we're gonna host another one next Wednesday. And the part two is called Facts Over Feelings, right?
Mm.
Because to your point, I think too many of us just articulate these points because we're ill-informed or uninformed, but we are so committed to presenting ourselves as more knowledgeable than we are that we are afraid to just admit it was our feelings that led us into this posture and not facts that we were able to go
Right.
research and verify. So
Right.
many conservatives, because they just take talking points from folks on the right and then mile them off, even this point, and I brought this up in our conversation, the up the vote conversation last time, the point of black folks just vote Democrat. Like, that's a Republican GOP talking point that is counterfactual. Okay.
Right.
It's just not facts.
It's not facts.
Right, because prior to JFK, we were voting Republican.
Republican. Absolutely.
So the question anybody should want to ask is, what happened that made black folks shift from one party to the other? And the bottom line is the political philosophy and agenda of one party shifted. The Republicans that used to brag about being Trump, being Abraham Lincoln supporters, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ones
Grand
who,
old party.
yeah, right. Like, they shifted, and then the Dixiecrats, who were the former Southern Democrats,
Democrats. Right.
shifted over to the Republican Party. And we were wise enough as black folks to know now the Republican Party does not share in the agenda that is most closely aligned with the interests of black folks. Here's another thing that people on the right would say as like a talking point that they get from conservatives, like that the conservatives are the job creators. Well, here's something President Clinton said last night. I could not take it at face value because it just sounded so erroneous. He can't be telling the truth, no matter how he set it up. But he said since the end of the Cold War, which is 1989,
okay,
the Democratic presidents have created 50 million jobs, and the Republican presidents have created 1 million.
You say it can't be true.
I'm like, it can't be true. So you know what I do, right, Whit?
I'm not,
man, I go look, right? And economists and commentators are saying, yes, it's true. Now they talk about how you calculate. Look, and they say if you go back to like
since 1989,
and they say if you go back to the 60s, it's higher than that. It's not 50-1, it's something like 88 to 33.
Jesus.
88 million to 33. You know, they find all of the ways to calculate that, but on its face, as facts, as black facts, how do you claim to be supporting the party that creates the jobs when the facts say it's not the Republican Party that does it?
Jesus. But people will take that talking point and they'll run with it. They'll share it on their social media. They'll argue it at dinner tables, but
Because
they won't
they
won't
won't
do the
concerned
research.
with being perceived as being right than they are about figuring out what the truth is. And this is a moment where we need to be meek enough, honest enough, humble enough, curious enough, and authentic enough to just figure out what the truth is. If you can prove to me that these things about the Republican Party that you want to be true are actually true, then I will move over.
Come on now.
I want to support whoever is
right.
Whoever is most closely aligned with black folks on issues. Okay. Yes. Now you can't prove to me that that's the Republican Party right now. So outside of this cult of personality, as I said on this same broadcast last time, it's not so much I'm with her, it's that I'm with us, and she is more closely aligned to us than anybody else that can win this election right now.
I said I shared that point with a dear friend of mine who works with Ben Crump, you know, that you said, I'm not necessarily for her, I'm with us. I thought that was so powerful because it gives a whole different perspective on your values, your principles, your convictions, right? That if she was not in alignment with your values, your principles, your convictions, then you wouldn't be with her, right? You wouldn't be supporting her. Listen, family, I know that you are enjoying this conversation with Dr. Earl Fisher. I want you to pause right now and share this video. Everybody who's watching, share this video. Those of you who are on YouTube, hit like. If you're enjoying this, those of you who are on LinkedIn, be sure to share this on your page. But everybody who can right now, I want you to take a second. If you're enjoying the conversation, I want you to take a second and share this video. And we're going to pause because I do want Dr. Fisher again to just let us know about his book. He's an incredible author. Dr. Fisher, if you can just, I know you don't like, he's really humbled about this, but the brother is just, he's sharp. And I want him to share that one more time before we get out of here.
All right. So Albert Clegg Jr. and the Black Prophetic Tradition, the reintroduction to the Black Messiah, Amazon, all of those outlets. You can Google Dr. Earl Fisher book, and I'm sure to come up. If you just want to email me and get access to it, Pastor Earl25 at gmail.com, PASTOREARLE25 at gmail.com. I'll reply to you. There's actually a link in my signature where you can order the book that way.
Right. Again, you can email him, so that you can get the information. There's a link on his email. I just want to make sure that we promote it, and let people know who you are. I want people to know that we have someone on here that actually does the work, that actually does the research, that actually knows what they're talking about. And you're enlightening all of us, myself included. And I love the way that you articulate in a simple way for all of us to understand what's going on. And so I definitely can appreciate it. And so let's move on. I've noticed, and I want to ask you this, that there are a lot of popular black celebrities, hip hop artists, all of these people who have lended their support to Trump. Um, because of our culture, right? Because of how we love our culture. Black folks, we love our culture, right? So, it's kind of like, Kanye West, we put him out, we'll kick him out until he make a beat, right? Until he makes a great song, and then everybody else, we get mad at our celebrities until, everybody was upset with Will Smith for slapping Chris Rock until Bad Boys came out, and they forgot all about that. So we
Yes, sir.
folks was like, Chris who? Chris who?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I mean, and everybody watched it and laughed when Martin slapped him. I mean, it was a joke. We knew exactly what he was talking about. And so I know how we love our culture. We love our entertainers, right? Our hip hop artists, our actors, and a lot of them, well known, are lending their support to Trump. Do you do you do you think that that's going to have any effect on voters, or do you think it's just a shot in the wind?
So some of these are like generalizations that I think might not tell the most accurate story.
Okay.
Yes, are there people within the black community who are recognized as celebrities in some capacity or another that have
Okay.
pledged their support to President Trump? I think the answer is yes, but I don't think there's some substantial,
Okay.
overwhelming number, right? Are there black folks who are supporting the president, a former president? Absolutely. Will it be enough to actually make an impact? I don't think that's the case. You know, that's not the way I'm reading the tea leaves right now. And
Okay.
so it's complicated because when you start talking about a national election,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things we know, we discussed this last time. I don't think since 2000, and even prior to, I think Reagan is the last Republican to win the popular vote,
Okay.
and maybe even before then, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is not about whether or not Trump is going to win the popular vote. He's not.
We know he's not. We know
So
he's not.
then, so in a sense, if there are, you know, 4 million black people who vote for him out of 80 million votes, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot in a raw number, but from a percentage standpoint, not necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's very close. Where it starts to matter is, again, in these battleground states. So the question is he making enough headway in the battleground states? And I think the question you are asking is he making headway with black voters because of the
That's
perception of,
exactly.
okay, I just wanted to clarify the question so that it's not as general, right? Because people
Sure.
might, because if we leave it at the general level, then
Uh-huh.
we give it more credit and credence than it actually deserves.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So I wanted to press it into the particular so that we can see if indeed Amber Rose is going to move
Okay.
10,000 people in Michigan or Minnesota or North Carolina
Okay.
or Arizona. And I think the short answer is no.
Gotcha.
No.
Gotcha.
It's not I don't think it's so much the celebrities, right? Because by and large, he's getting has-beens and B-list select, like, right, from
I
black
got
from
you. I got you. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, Beyonce and them now hit him with a cease and desist. They don't even play my music no more. He had to create AI for Taylor Swift, right? And you know,
Right.
so clearly he doesn't seem to be winning much ground there. Where
Okay.
I do think he might be making some headway, but I still don't think it's enough, is in those communities where black folk feel like the Democratic Party has not spoken to them directly. And now I'm talking about black men.
Okay.
And I'm talking about black men who feel like the only thing the Democratic Party has offered them in the last few years is a conversation about criminal justice reform.
Okay.
And now you're going to lose some ground on that if you're talking to people who have been disenfranchised through felony conviction and may have gotten their rights restored, or people
Mm-hmm.
who got family members who have been disenfranchised through felony conviction. And now you keep hammering home that Trump got a felony conviction, been convicted of these 30 something felonies, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure as a
Okay.
campaign strategy that point is really sticking.
Okay.
I don't think it now. It might stick with white folk, right? But I don't think it's
Right.
sticking with black folk. I don't think black folks is like, man, he a felon and I ain't finna vote, right? I think black folks are like, man, it is so hypocritical for the country to allow this guy who has all of these felonies to run for
Right.
president, but my
Right.
cousin who got them, or my child who has them, or
Right.
I who have them, or my friend who got them, or my coworker who got them, can't even cast a ballot in many other southern states.
Yeah.
So I think,
That's. Go ahead. Go ahead, doctor. I'm sorry.
you know,
Go
I,
ahead.
I, I just think that's a place where you might see some movement and some traction. And I think he's appealing to them in a way because of the back door that the Democratic Party left open by not really speaking of that. And at the same time, I think when you look at Vice President Harris,
Okay.
there is some ground that can be gained because she can speak very coherently and compellingly about what's happening in the criminal justice system. And she got receipts to
She got
support
receipts.
the kind of reforms that I think many of us want to see happen to our brothers and sisters who have been disenfranchised through felony conviction or who have been victimized
Right.
by the criminal justice system.
Yeah, I myself had to go through a process to regain my voting rights because I had a few felonies, and so I was fortunate enough to go through the process. And I had those for many years. And so, I literally, and I'm excited about it, but I literally just started voting because I didn't have the right to vote.
Yeah.
But rest assured, once I got the right,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's on and popping.
You
I'm
know,
voting on everything.
you
I'm
know
not.
when we talked last time, Bishop, I told you that conversation you had with your daughter was a very
Yes.
compelling conversation and needs to be amplified. Now I'm gonna tell you again this story about you being disenfranchised and regaining that right is a compelling story that I think needs to be amplified as well. And this is coming from somebody who has walked with church members and community members to get their rights restored, right? Because it
Yes.
is a very valuable and important experience and endeavor, and nobody can really speak to it like somebody who's been through it like you have. And so
Yeah.
again, I think it's important for you to kind of like share with people like going through what you've been through, like
Yes.
why you still don't like what's the difference between what you went through and what Trump is going through, right? In part, like you don't have the luxury of falling back on donations in the millions
Come
that you
on.
can exploit because of a t-shirt that they got your, it's a lot of
Or
stuff.
some shoes. Or some shoes. Right.
Right.
Ugly
Or a
shoes because it's
Bible.
black.
Or a Bible. Like this
Or,
guy has
come on.
literally sold the Bible. Like you want to talk about hypocrisy in religion? This guy is literally selling a Bible.
That he don't believe in. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think I do need to speak more about that because I was really excited. I got emotional when I got my voting rights. It was an emotional thing because I know how important it is. Being disenfranchised, being in a community where drugs, drug infested, and I was sharing with someone today how when I was out there, they would come, bust the block, narcotic agents, and put us in handcuffs and give us their phone number, slide their card in our back pocket. You know what I mean? Come work for me. Come work for me. And so we were disenfranchised, mishandled, and that's just the truth of the matter. And some people don't fall victim to it, but a lot of people do. They choose what would appear to be the easier route, such as I did, right?
Yeah.
And but I paid my debt, and now I'm able to vote, and that's important for those who have felony convictions to, hey man, make a difference because the future is at stake, right?
Yes.
The future is at stake. And
Yep.
so I take it serious, man. I was emotional, all of that. Like I had tears, I mean, literal tears in my eyes,
Yeah.
because I remember when I was young and they was taking me back to the back after they had fingerprinted me. And I looked up and there was a sign that said, "You just lost your right to vote," right? And I was like, whoa, that let me know then. Now, when I'm young and dumb, I'm in the streets, I'm fighting, shooting, doing all this stuff, that I didn't care.
Yeah.
But when I saw that, man, that was something to think about.
Yeah.
As a young man, I'm like, oh wow, you mean tell me I can't vote? And so I remember when I found out that I could, man, it really moved me, right, in a way, and those things matter. I told my daughter, this is her first time voting. I want it to matter to her now. It mattered to me when I was older, right,
Mm.
but I want it to matter to her now so that she'll have a different track record than what I had. But
Yeah.
go ahead, Doc.
No, no, I just think that's a beautiful testimony, man. And again, I appreciate you sharing it. It's a valuable thing, and you can speak to it in ways other people cannot. So appreciate you, taking the time to share that. And I know there are others out there. And what that does for me is further appreciate and authenticate and affirm like where you are landing in this election,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
you are doing this based upon concrete experience with a
absolutely,
system that needs to be reformed. And of the two candidates, there's only one talking about reforming it in a way that would be
absolutely,
better for people who have been through what you've been through.
absolutely. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. When you listen and you pay attention, as you stated earlier, common sense or nonsense. Like it's a no-brainer. So here's where I want to go with this now. As we're looking at the DNC, and it's been exciting, man. I've been enjoying it. I was in a meeting last night for several hours, so I missed it. I had to watch it, catch the replay. Um, so of course we know, that we are only what 13%, 15% of the whole nation. So as I was sharing with some people, it would be impossible for someone to gain the presidency without the support of white America.
Sure.
Right? It's just absolutely impossible. You can get all of the black votes and you
Yeah.
still won't have enough to
Right.
gain the presidency. Um, the way that Kamala is running her campaign, do you believe that it will have a negative impact or positive impact on the way white America views her?
Um, so I don't want to group all of white America in one box either. And
Okay,
it's to your point, right? Like
sure.
historically, um, white folks have by and large voted for uh the whitest and most conservative candidate that's on the ballot, right?
Okay,
And so and in a sense, I'm not throwing no shade at that. If that is
okay,
who they feel represents their interest, then more power to them. But I do know there's a whole lot of them that have been duped and manipulated to believe these people represent their interests. And it's funny when you start talking about conservatism, but you ain't got nothing to conserve because you white and poor, right? But you talking about
come
you a
on,
conservative living in a trailer park, right? Like
come
so,
on,
okay.
come on.
But then again, again, as we discussed earlier, that's when you are much more in alignment with the notion of whiteness and its access to power than you are with any notion of rightness or righteousness or democracy or justice or equality and equity. So
Okay,
um, what I think we have seen with stuff like white dudes for Kamala, white women for Kamala,
it's interesting.
I think that does express the possibility of those undecided voters who could have been swung either way,
Okay,
if they are reasonable, and I think it's a substantial number of them that are reasonable out there. There have been studies on, they would call them like suburban moms and stuff like that. There have been
okay,
studies on the swing voters and all of that. And from what I've seen and heard, she is appealing to them a lot more than Trump would be. And
mm,
so if she is going to continue to, for lack of better terms, pick off a slice of the white electorate here and there, you
okay,
know, I think that can make all of the difference in the world, because there was a lot of analysts who looked at 2016 where Hillary underperformed, and it would have
she
been in a
did.
lot of those white suburban areas. And it is in those same spaces in 2020 where Biden started to peel back some of that stuff and even in some instances overperform. And
Hmm.
that's what many people say gave him the nod. So there's going to be, look, this is not going to be a landslide election no matter how you slice it.
Not gonna be easy.
It's not.
Absolutely.
And so all of those little pockets and pieces matter, which is why you have to applaud the Harris Walls campaign.
Okay.
You got to applaud them for their polished presentation. Up to this point, they have not made any significant mistakes. And you got to give Kamala Harris credit for picking Tim Walz.
That's where I was about to go.
Listen, listen. If you watched that last night, I'm not no redneck fan necessarily, right? This ain't no
I got
shade
you.
to it, right? But I don't really get moved by the redneckism, right?
Come on.
Just like I wouldn't move when it was Sarah Palin, okay?
Come on. I got you.
Because she was a redneck, but she was not all that competent. And, and,
Exactly.
and I think the vote bore that out. Tim Walz, look, when you got a son with neurodivergence, which is to say his brain is wired in a different way, okay?
Yes.
And this man is crying when his dad is walking up there talking about, that's my daddy. Now, if that didn't move you, if that didn't touch, I ain't saying it got to move you to vote, but I'm saying
Come on.
if that didn't say to you, there's something respectable and honorable about this guy.
Come on, man.
And I'm saying Kamala has the insight and the foresight and the discernment. Come on, deep Christian
Yes.
folk, right? To
Yes.
pick him. And
Yes.
he has complimented, because he is the same thing we were just talking about, Bishop. Those spaces in rural America, if
Uh-huh.
you are reasonable, you are saying, maybe there is, maybe, maybe I can, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the DNC, we have seen several instances of people on the stage that said they were former Trump supporters or they voted for
Mhm.
Trump in the past and that they're not
Absolutely.
voting for. I didn't see that in the RNC. Now, I didn't watch it as closely, but I didn't see a bunch of, I voted for Biden and it's over because when you start looking at the facts, y'all, the facts
Facts.
bear out. In the economy, he's been better. On healthcare, he's been better. On jobs, he's been better. On criminal justice reform, he's been better. On foreign policy, he's been better. What are we doing here?
Man.
What are we doing
Man.
here? So that Walls pick. I'm not one to say the vice president picks, put someone over the top. Now, let's just be clear though. When Biden picked Vice
Kamala.
President Harris,
Come on.
you
He put
already
him over the
knew.
top.
You already knew black women wasn't about to be playing around.
They was not gonna play, sir.
And we know now with her at the top of the ticket, black women ain't gonna be playing around. Black men ain't playing around either. Y'all see that? Black women organized
Absolutely.
the first night. The very next night, black men were like, "Yeah, what up, dog?"
Yeah. Let's make it happen.
But again, to that point about that crucial swing vote, that moderate vote, that undecided vote, I think what we have seen is a very thoughtful, a very strategic, a very smart, and in the right way is a very sassy campaign. And it's
Wow.
working. It's working.
It's working, man. I watched his speech, and I said to myself, there was just a certain level of authenticity to him. Like he's not necessarily a politician in the
Yeah.
way that we know politicians to be. It was a certain level of genuineness and just down to earth, that and you can't fake it that way. It just seems so genuine, man, and so real. And I was like, man, how is this going to affect everything? But it's going to affect and it's going to have a positive effect
Yeah.
on it. And
So,
go ahead.
well, I think the vice presidency can affect one negatively. I think we've seen that with JD Vance and the Trump campaign. I don't know exactly how much a vice presidency can affect one positively, but anytime you make a move like that and it don't hurt you,
Hmm. He can't
and,
do nothing but help you.
right. And it's, I don't think nobody who is being reasonably objective would say Tim Walz as a pick has hurt Vice President Harris and her campaign in any way. I just don't think
Not
that
at
that's true.
all. However, Vance has definitely hurt Trump's campaign. No
Yeah,
questions about
by most objective measures, yes. In part because he has taken the focus off of Trump and put it on him in some negative ways, right? When
it.
people start
Right.
criticizing and condemning and critiquing, things that you've said, especially the childless cat ladies thing, you know, those type of remarks, like you ain't heard Walt make no remark like that, right?
Right.
Only
Right.
thing he's done is added value to Kamala's campaign, where you could say JD Vance has added negative value to Trump's
Absolutely.
campaign. So I don't know exactly how much, because most of us don't know, Dan Quayle or most folks, unless you live in Tennessee, you don't know who Al Gore is, right? Like, so most folks don't know about vice presidents, they
Right.
don't really matter,
Right.
but it is interesting to see this, especially again in this age of personality driven politics.
Wow. And I don't think that we'll ever escape that again. It's the personality driven.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever escape that because people are too accessible. Social media made everybody accessible. So that's just where we are. We are leading up to Kamala speaking on tonight.
Yeah.
Um,
So we can't tarry much longer, Bishop.
yeah. So tell me, what should we expect to hear from her?
I'm pretty sure, most of it is gonna be the staple stuff. We're gonna hear
Okay.
about her story. And she's gonna probably at some point say the same thing we've heard people say. Barack Obama said the same thing, whether it's true or not. In no other country on earth is a story like mine possible, right? So she's gonna say that.
Sure.
And I think she's also gonna dig into some policy particulars and start to craft and create more succinctly what her vision for the next 4 years are. And of course, there are going to be some jabs and some jarbs at the previous president, and I think rightfully so. I'm sure there are going to be some one-liners.
Yeah.
But I think we see here.
Some sister girl talk.
Yeah. Now, because Michelle gave it to us, boy.
She did
Michelle,
give it to us, sir. She
uh,
definitely gave it to us.
but here's the thing, though, Bishop. I think the value is not so much in the particular substance as much as it is in this powerful symbol. And that's one of the things that really captivate the political imagination in the country. Like the fact that we can potentially elect the first black woman president
Mm-hmm.
is a symbol of shattering a glass ceiling that I think captures people's attention and draws us in, and it's something that we want to be a part of. And so I think that's going to be the most important thing. Now, don't miss this though. She gave remarks in Milwaukee the other night
She did.
that were streamed into the DNC. And you saw a packed United Center in Chicago and a packed convention center
Hey
in
man,
Milwaukee.
they were packed.
Bruh,
I was like, whoa, that
it's
was
a
different.
flex. It's a flex, Doc. It's
Because
a
as
flex.
Obama said, with his obsession,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
with crowds, right?
yeah, right. So again, as long as she don't go out there and stutter, utter, and mutter, I think we're gonna hear some of the most staple and basic talking points, and that's cool. I don't expect no rhetorical wizardry. That hadn't been her thing, right?
Right.
She gonna say some stuff that's gonna land. It's gonna be sharp. It's gonna be sharp, and the things that she says today is going to be much more amplifying the symbolism of it all. So I think that's what's more important.
Amen. Well, listen, family, we have enjoyed this conversation. This is part two of a trilogy. We're going to come back one more time before the actual election and have some more conversation with the Dr. Earl J. Fisher. Doctor, we appreciate you, sir. We appreciate your insight, your knowledge, just everything that you're bringing to the table to inform us, right, and to simplify it, where even children can. My daughter was on, my 18-year-old, she was on, and she was bigging you up, she rocking with you hard, and so we appreciate the conversation. Again, we'll be letting everybody know when we'll be coming back, probably in another month. We'll do this last little piece and close it out. And we want y'all to share this video as you are watching it. Watch the replay. Watch it again. Be informed. I would suggest that you would get with your family, cast it on your TV, and watch. I think this conversation is good enough to share with your whole family. And so again, I'm your host, Bishop Kevin Whitaker, interviewing Dr. Earl Fisher on Black Women Empowered, Black Men Empowered. We appreciate everybody for watching. Share it, watch the replay. And until next time, listen, grace and peace. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Bishop. Appreciate it, brother.
Bless you, sir. We'll talk, man.
Yep. Peace.
All right.